Mark Carney, who says, the first thing I did in this very room was get rid of the carbon tax.
Got rid of the consumer carbon tax,
correct,
which is different than
the industrial side, but it's still a portion of the carbon tax scheme that existed in this country.
How much of the resources did that how much of the emission reduction did that consumer carbon tax?
9%.
Yeah, well, it's actually 6, but if you extrapolate it out to 2030,
if it went the further, as far as it was supposed to go, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's not much.
When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Yin and yang. There's both.
There's both.
I said what I said.
Well, how would you articulate to Canadians like what that change will actually look like? Is it just you?
So, well, no. Okay, if I may, you are going into process and personnel. I'm going to results. I'm talking about one Canadian economy. I'm talking about getting rid of all the federal.
But those personnel didn't deliver.
No. Please, let me answer the question.
A bit more conventional when you talk about big projects, and that is around energy. And in particular, when you said during the campaign you want to make Canada an energy superpower, do you mean you want Canada to export more oil and gas?
Well, that is an element of it, but it's not the element of it. So there are multiple elements. When you're a superpower, let's look at America. America is a superpower. It is a superpower because it has a strong economy. It is a superpower because it has a strong military. Arguably, it is also a superpower because it has soft power, has cultural, the American influence is multiple, and all of those aspects contribute to it. So when I talk about being an energy superpower, I always say in both clean and conventional energies. So what does that mean? Yes, it does mean oil and gas. It means using our oil and gas here in Canada to displace imports wherever possible, particularly from the United States. But yes, it also means more exports, without question. But it doesn't stop there. That in and of itself doesn't make us an energy superpower. We can be an energy superpower, and we have all the components in nuclear, in hydro, in potentially in carbon capture and storage, which is going to be one of the determinants of competitiveness and productivity in a number of sectors. And so, look, if I were, I shouldn't classify myself, but a conventional politician might say, you know what we should be judged by is whether or not we approve one pipeline, right? And that's going to make us an energy superpower. And that is a type of objective that you can define and you can point to that is progress, but it doesn't accomplish the bigger goals, and it's not at the level of what Canada is capable of. We need to do multiple things at the same time in order to build this base so that we are creating wealth and competitiveness, better lives for Canadians for generations.
I think if I'm accurately representing the point of view from people whose livelihood depends on the conventional energy sector, it's not that they're asking you like, that's it, that's the be-all, end-all. It's that they want to know where conventional energy fits into your ambitions. And it's not just because, if I may, not just because of the record of the previous government, it's because of you yourself, your book Values, for example, which extensively talks about a reorientation of the market around the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign and now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
First off, I've said repeatedly yes, first point. Secondly, that because I understand the need for that consensus, I'm a Prime Minister who can help create that consensus. You can't create a consensus on your own, but you have to drive processes that bring provinces along, bring the private sector in. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades. Putting in place, as we have, billions of dollars of financing for those Indigenous partners, bringing in somebody like Tim Hodgson, who, when he was CEO of Hydro One, was one of the only major corporations to have a major Indigenous partnership program that actually worked. So we're bringing the components in. We have to deliver it. Let me make another point, because I appreciate that you've read my book very carefully. At the core of the way I talk about the energy transition is the future of, including about Canada being an energy superpower, is the future is low risk. Canada's low risk is a business investment place. Low cost. We're getting the cost down, including the oil sands. The marginal production is low cost, and low carbon. All 3 of those come together. We have the ingredients of all that. Let's get together and move on it. And takes more than just one pipeline in order to accomplish.
And I do understand that point, but I think like in your book, multiple occasions, for example, you talk about the merits of a carbon tax. And now we have a different Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who says, the first thing I did in this very room was get rid of the carbon tax.
Got rid of the consumer carbon tax,
correct,
which is different than
the industrial side, but it's still a portion of the carbon tax scheme that existed in this country.
How much of the resources did that how much of the emission reduction did that consumer
9%.
Carbon tax? Yeah, well, it's actually 6, but if you extrapolate it out to 2030,
if it went
it's 9.
as far as it was supposed to go, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's not much. It's not much, and we can do much better with different approaches, including collaborative approaches, which is what I'm looking to do.
How can you be collaborative,
if you want a simple answer on will I support building a pipeline? Yes, that simple answer, I've given that multiple times. But I don't stop at that. I don't stop it. For example, if you want a simple answer on how do I make homes more affordable, I could just say, we're going to cut GST on homes. But that doesn't solve the problem. Just doing one pipe, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. That's a positive thing, and working collaboratively in order to happen. But it's not enough. It's not enough to make Canada an energy superpower. It's not enough to build our full potential. It's not enough to truly get incomes growing across the country. We can do much more. We are going to be very, very ambitious. Build big, build bold, build now.
It does speak, though, to what people in Alberta and Saskatchewan who didn't vote for your party are worried about, right? They are worried that it is the Mark Carney of values, it is the Justin Trudeau government, and the reason I ask about that is against that backdrop, right? You are still saying you're going to keep C-69 in place, you are going to keep the emissions cap in place. They view that as evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I've said very clear. Look, I am a pragmatist. I go over and over on this, and I really am. I'm interested in results. So the point of building a pipeline, the point of building out carbon capture is to get the results, to get those barrels to the market, to get carbon down. You can do both. We have the capability to do more. And we have the capabilities financially, from a technological perspective, in terms of the companies. Federal government can play a role. The province of Alberta, obviously other provinces, Indigenous people have to come along for almost all of these projects in order for them to actually work. And what I'm putting on the table is, okay, let's go. Let's not talk about this. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's focus in on specific projects, and let's work on them together. Now, and we will change things at the federal level that need to be changed in order for projects to move forward.
Does that include C-69 or the emissions cap?
It could include both. Absolutely could include both. But I'm not going to do it conceptually. I'm going to do it on specifics. Do it for moving forward. And that's the point. The test is Canadians deserve results, not rhetoric and not talking past each other.
I'm already getting the wrap sign, and I apologize. I know your time is very limited. I wonder if I could ask very briefly on how Parliament will work on what you just mentioned. Have you spoken to Pierre Poilievre about seeking support from the Conservatives in advancing parts of that agenda?
Mr. Poilievre and I spoke after the election, immediately after the election. He congratulated me, and I signaled to him that if he was, as he is, seeking a by-election, I would call it as soon as I'm allowed to do that. So that's the conversation that we've had. He's not the leader of the opposition, as you know, at the moment, so any conversations, obviously, at least in the near term, would be with Mr. Scheer.
When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Yin and yang. There's both.
There's both?
I said what I said. He is. What matters for Canadians is that the relationship with the U.S. has changed. I've been clear about that. Clear about that for months. I think others were very slow to recognize that. I think it's now increasingly understood. Secondly, that it has bigger ramifications than just the U.S. The way the global economy is working is changing. We need to change. Working with President Trump, working with his team as possible, sovereign nation to sovereign nation, that's what I'm pursuing.
Do you plan? So how do you articulate, because you conceded today, you did through the campaign, that the mandate you have is one for change. It's against that backdrop that I'm asking those questions about those big faces for your cabinet. How would you articulate to Canadians like what that change will actually look like? Is it just you?
No. Okay, if I may, you are going into process, and personnel. I'm going to results. I'm talking about one Canadian economy. I'm talking about getting rid of all the federal
But
barriers.
those personnel didn't deliver.
No. Please, let me answer the question. Those are real results that will happen or not. We will either pass that legislation or not. First point. Secondly, in terms of working with the provinces, working with Indigenous peoples, working with the territories, identifying the nation building process, a process that has already begun. I helped start it during my first few days as Prime Minister in the previous mandate, now going to accelerate through, already talking with Premier Smith, Premier Moe, Premier Ford, Premier Legault, all the premiers about, Premier Canoop, sorry, now I'm going to offend somebody because I haven't mentioned them all, but they're all working on this and working towards our Saskatoon First Ministers meeting, June 2nd. Again, that's a tangible thing. You'll see where we're coming together on specific projects. What's the federal government doing to support those? What are we doing with respect to our relationship with the United States? So these are all real things. And to reduce it, to faces, personnel, and then, by the way, to ignore half of the cabinet, which is brand new, literally, never been in cabinet before, and now they're in very senior roles at core priorities for the government.
It's definitely not to reduce the new people that I ask. It's because, to be fair,
can I remind as well?
Yes, you can, but I want to finish after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you finish and then I'll.
I was just going to say that, I covered that government extensively. Those are the ministers who told me time and time again the carbon tax was the only way to address climate change, who told me time and time again the only way to be fiscally responsible was to bring in capital gains tax changes. Yes, you came in and you changed that, but these are the people for 10 years who defended what you say you have a mandate to change from. It's not just a personnel thing that I'm asking about.
Let's be clear about mandates. We just had an election, you might have noticed. I think you covered it, right?
Correct.
19 million Canadians voted. More Canadians voted for a political party, the Liberal Party, than ever before. We have more votes than anyone else. We have majorities in 7 of the 10 provinces. We have the most seats in Parliament, and we ran on a very clear platform of change. More Canadians chose that platform of change than anybody else's. So we have a clear mandate. I come and all the deputies, Liberal deputies in Parliament come with a responsibility to deliver that change. That's what, Canadians, they put their trust in us. They expect us to deliver. And I'm going to put together the cabinet, the legislative agenda, and work with the provinces, work with Indigenous peoples, work with the territories in order to deliver for Canadians. And Canadians will judge the change that they receive. That's the right thing. And I'll do what's necessary with the people I have around the table in order to deliver that.